This video is available in described video. Please see the description below for more details. This is a generic desktop computer that you would probably find in a library, school, or office. They are common and numerous on the used market because after a couple of years of their release, they usually get replaced in the mass. As a result, the old ones usually end up being sold on eBay or Kijiji, going from reseller to reseller. Eventually, they end up in the hands of normal consumers like you and I, sold for pretty cheap. For many, we probably use these computers when we wanted to try new things like install Linux. Or perhaps we had to use it for all of our games because we couldn't afford to get a real computer for gaming. These computers are a bit more special than their boring appearance would suggest. This model in particular is the HP Compaq Pro 6300 small form factor PC. I got it for cheap. A lot of people use these machines to do their gaming. In fact, gaming on a super low budget is nothing new, but what is different about this computer is that it wasn't originally designed for gaming. This can clearly be seen as it is not designed at all for things as simple as adding a common graphics card. These desktops are famously difficult to upgrade, only supporting low-profile graphics cards. A GTX 1050 low-profile graphics card would actually turn this PC into quite a decent gaming machine. However, getting that graphics card is really a band-aid on a larger problem. This is because beyond that, there isn't usually much else that you can upgrade, and that graphics card is really expensive for what it is. If you got a good deal on an old office PC like this, it would likely cost twice as much to make the upgrade to a 1050. In terms of other upgrades, the motherboard doesn't support many CPUs, and even if you do upgrade it, it isn't a huge improvement for the money. You could upgrade the RAM, but unless you have less than 8 GB, chances are it would not make a huge difference in most games where your 1050 or the CPU would still be the limiting factor. Upgrading the RAM is really where the problems with this PC's expandability begins. Upgrading the RAM for these PCs is pointless because they usually use DDR3, which is quite outdated at this point. That means that you would be investing money in a standard that would lose its value really quickly. A similar thing can be said about the graphics card. The money you would need to spend on the graphics card would be more than a normal GTX 1050 because it would need to fit inside the case, and those cards are more difficult to find and more costly. Sure, you could simply cut a hole in the case with an angle grinder, but I doubt most people would. Plus, if you're cutting a hole for your massive graphics card, you might need to upgrade the power supply while you're at it, which would cost extra and require another hole. Another factor going against the small form factor graphics card upgrade is that for someone constrained by cost, you'd be losing an awful lot of value during the resale of the card. What I mean is that you will lose the extra money that you spent for a shorter, low-profile card because people on the used market don't usually buy the graphics card for its size, but rather for the chip that's on the inside. It wouldn't make sense to really upgrade anything. That being said, why is this computer so important for gamers and the PC community, as I mentioned earlier? Gaming has gone astray. This PC brings us back to our roots of playing old games that were simply fun. They had to be fun because if they weren't fun, they wouldn't sell anything. Games now release a trailer and everyone proceeds to pre-order it because it looks fun and it looks pretty. In the end, we get games like Watch Dogs Legion being used to benchmark, but no one ever plays the game because it's simply too repetitive and not fun. We get games that are buggy and incomplete because of these pre-orders as well. Cyberpunk is infamous for this, but the original Watch Dogs was also known for not fulfilling its promises. This PC doesn't allow these things to happen, because whatever game that you play on this computer, it will have to be at the lowest graphics. You buy games knowing that they won't look good, so you don't buy them for how good they look. You also probably wouldn't be buying games right away, too, because some cost the price of the entire computer. As such, you'll have enough time to know how good the game is and how the developer and publisher treats their fans and customers. This is CSGO running on the PC. It is around 40 FPS or so. I would say it's playable for casual players. It can obviously play games like Monaco, What's Yours Is Mine, a personal favorite, or other indie titles such as FTL, Faster Than Light. These games have such solid gameplay, unique art styles, but can be often off-putting for new players. However, for owners of this computer and computers like it, these types of games would be the only things they can play. What I am trying to say is that there are so many games forgotten by time, underrated, or simply just good games that gamers would miss by only keeping up with the newest games that everyone talks about. Not to mention all the games that could be emulated, if you're into that. It is a similar idea as to what Nintendo does with the DS and Wii. Rather than focusing on the technical prowess of a console to compete, they put out weaker, less advanced consoles with really great games. When people play Pokemon or Mario Kart, they don't play because it looks good, they play because it's fun. We, as gamers, are supposed to play games first because they are fun, because they take us away, because they inspire happiness, and if I may, because they spark a joy. It seems we have forgotten that. There are many ways that this theory currently exists in gamers, though. An example that I found was with the AMD Athlon 3000G, as featured in the famous Low Spec Gamer YouTube channel. He was able to find some very creative ways to get games to run on that modest APU. Much of what I have just said applies to the users of that chip. The chip's price and accessibility causes masses to enjoy the best of PC gaming. They lose out a lot on graphics, but are also not distracted by deceptive new releases that underperform, and I think that is a worthy trade. The point of this video is to say that these small form factor business machines, whether it is a Dell Optiplex, Lenovo ThinkCentre, or HP Compaq PC, or some other device with only integrated graphics, allows this budget approach to gaming to really bring out the best in games. That's not to say that beautiful graphics in games are bad, but simply that people are often too fixated on it. They can't see the forest for the trees. They often buy the games because they simply look good and are often not as fun as they appear, pun intended. Good graphics can really make an already good game great, but will not make a bad game better than it is. It seems like the feeling that exists in gaming now is, since I bought this new console or new graphics card, I want to play the most intensive games, because if I paid for the full speedometer, I will damn well use the whole speedometer. People who game on these crappy iGPU computers are more resistant to this idea, though. They can be seen as the purists who are not distracted by the glitz and glam of these new games. There isn't anything wrong with people who started out like this with these low-spec machines, or even game like this on a regular basis, which is something that's really great about PC gaming. In fact, I know people who game even more than me, who use these business machines, but aren't willing to spend more on a new computer, because they see gaming more of a small hobby. They want to spend less money to play games, and more money on the games themselves. Or perhaps they are simply satisfied with the gaming experience they already have, just as it is, even if it means their games look a bit like garbage, because to them, it really is the gameplay that matters. Next week on Mobile Museum. Phone that had to follow up with the legendary iPhone 4S and 4, a breed of phone that is seemingly lost to time. Definitely a blast from the past, even if it isn't as good as it used to be.